Okay, up next we have Dark World Transformation book number 2, written by Valerie Starsky. It is 557 pages, $3.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. The familiar world collapsed overnight. As the transformation progressed, disasters occurred throughout the earth, materials changed their properties, new species of flora and fauna appeared. The game converted our world into a huge dungeon, completely replacing the previous civilization. However, the alien plans for Earth began to go awry from the very beginning. The conversion was less successful than expected. An ordinary young man stole the bonus for the first gaming action, depriving the invaders of their perk. How can he manage the situation? Will the aliens become his allies? Which ones are his enemies? Dare they rebel against the all-powerful invaders, regain their land, and even create a new world? There we go. Part of that open description definitely talks about the plot line for book 1 a little bit, but that seriously shifts in book 2. I should acknowledge it up front, there are some translation issues with this. This is a translation from Russian into English. And so anytime you get that kind of stuff, you're going to get like some weird oddities of like just phrases don't translate correctly, just some like errors because you're translating thoughts from from Russian into English, and they're very different languages. So some of those phrases don't quite make a full transition. Still, it's nothing that ruined the story for me, but I know some of that stuff bothers readers, so I'm just making you aware of it. In this story, Yar and his group are sent to the Dark World, which is a place with different kind of RPG rules, and a different kind of conceptualization than the RPG Apocalypse version on Earth. The story is still very slice of life, but again, because it's shifting to a new world, it's essentially abandoning the RPG Apocalypse story in book 1 for now. It's from the novel description, it sounds like it's going to return to that maybe in book 3. But for now, the story definitely abandons that RPG Apocalypse story. So that's the thing you really loved about book 1. It doesn't exist here. So be aware of that. Instead, the big story goal here is that the main character is dropped in this world. He has to build up and defend this magical academy with new enemies showing up in waves to stop him and his group from surviving. There's also an expansion on the larger political factions in the universe and how they're impacting the group. The main character is, of course, becoming more powerful and becoming more influential. And believe it or not, the main character ups his overpoweredness in this novel. I know it sounds hard to believe considering how he ended in book 1, but he becomes even more powerful. Who would have thought? And that's part of either your joy or your annoyance with this particular novel on this series. It is a slice of life story. It's also very much an overpowered main character story. And a lot of the story here is just going to be fighting, the main character making up spells, saving different races. There's a little bit of crafting here. But most of it is just like this slice of life adventure when the main character is doing things. The game mechanics are a little more geared towards like essentially wave defense. So like you're creating a defensive structure, like in a magical academy kind of situation, and you're just having these waves of monsters and the main character and his new allies kind of dealing with them and expanding and growing. It's really fun in its own way, but again, you have to be okay with overpowered characters. You have to be okay with slice of life, and you kind of have to be okay with like this weird ish cultural translation of of something from a different language. So if you're cool with all that, great. You're gonna enjoy this one. I like this one a little bit less than the book 1 just because I was really into the RPG Apocalypse stuff in book 1. I'm always a big fan of that particular subgenre of RPG. And this is not there anymore. So I'm looking forward to book 3 when it returns, hopefully, and we'll see how that goes. But for now, I still enjoy the story, but it gets a score of 7.1 out of 10. That's The Dark World Transformation, book number 1, with a score of 7.1 out of 10 from us.